The desire to be heard, to be seen, and to be recognized by others is something that everybody wants, and arguably everyone needs. In fact, Abraham H. Maslow, in his system of hierarchy of needs, writes that one of the essential needs of every person is to have esteem needs being met, which means to be in relationship, to be seen, to have reciprocity, to know that you can talk and be heard. But what happens when you're confronted by someone so different than you could barely hear them out, you could barely listen? Do you avoid them? Never show up? Fight them head on? Or do you engage in dialogue and say, hear me out, shimuna? Today we live in a world of identity politics where people are so scrutinized for everything that they believe in, the place that they come from, and the statements that they make. People have never been more on trial for who they are. And so what do we do when we have someone who is so oppositional to us? Do we avoid them? Because ultimately, in this generation, one of the great fears is that we don't have dialogue with people who are different than us, within the Jewish community and beyond. In this week's Torah portion, Parashat Korach, we see a brawl begin with a group of 250 of the finest Levites, people who feel unseen, people who feel like their needs of esteem are not being met. And so Vayikach Korach takes it into his own hands. Rashi there writes that actually Korach decided intentionally to be on the tzad acher, the other side of things, when you intentionally don't want to be in conversation and dialogue, where you intentionally rather be fighting than to create a resolution. Essentially, we see that Korach was in a place of wanting to fight. And yet, when you're proposed by your enemy to fight you in your presence, what did Moses do? It says, Vayishma Moshe vayipol al panav. Moshe listened. He fell to the ground and he listened. He reasoned with those who are in opposition to find a place of resolve. And the story goes to no avail. And yet the lesson still stands. When you experience adversity, whether individually or in a relationship, what do? Do you run or do you lean in and say, please, Shimuna b'nei Levi, hear me out, and please let me hear you out? So the weekly mission for this week is to be able to recognize in ourselves, when do we feel a desire to pull away? And in those moments, maybe we should lean in. In the moments when we can't hear our neighbor, in the moments when we read an article that seems so ludicrous for us to believe, maybe there was truth to Korach in what he was saying. But ultimately, he didn't desire to have a dialogue. He didn't want to hear out the other side. So we should be blessed in this week to recognize that there are those in opposition to us, and yet we could hear them out. And ultimately, if you read the story, sometimes even hearing someone out won't end in a resolution. But nonetheless, the value of saying Shimuna and Vayishma al Moshe, that we could hear Vayishma Moshe, that we could hear the other side. Shabbat Shalom.